All right, Shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakakadash. I want to give honors to my apostle elders, Rick Millstone, who teach very well while the truth from and salutation out there to the hopeful elect. Continue to push this word and our truth, faith, and sincerity. And also, Shalom to all the men, women, and children who sincerely believe upon the words of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And then today, man, just basically touching on again on us being enlightened of what's going on. Because we was once in the dark about the judgment of America. We was in the dark of who we truly are as a people. It was at one point that we all thought we were just black Latinos and Native American. It was at one point that we cleaved into the culture of this wicked world. But the Lord have brought us up out of that sick mindset. Because that's all that is, man. You thinking that America, Babylon the Great is going to continue. That's a diagnostics of you being sick, or a diagnosis of you being in the dark of the true plans of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. The scriptures say the prudent man foreseeth the evil. How can you foresee something when you in complete and total darkness? A part of you seeing is coming back into your heritage. You know what I'm saying? Learning about our history and how we got from the Middle East all the way to the western coast of Africa, even here all the way into the western side of the world. Once you learn these things, it's a beautiful and wonderful story that the Lord have set up. But Esau have hid these things from us, man. Only thing that he give you is Omar Epps and guys like young Pharaoh. Niggas that cleaving to being a damn Egyptian instead of you cleaving into being the sons of the Most High. Showing you how far gone our people have come, man. Now let's go ahead and get this, because we was once in that mindset. He even tells us that in First Peter, the 4th chapter, thinking not strange when these people call you crazy and they don't fuck with you no more just because you put on the banner of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. Just because you're not in gross darkness no more, you the bad guy. Just because you want to be righteous, you mean. Let's get this. Psalms 18 and verse 28. It says, for thou will light my candle. The Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, my power, will enlighten my darkness. Now, how does the Lord enlighten our darkness, man? He gave us a spiritual night light here in the valley of the shadow of death. Because while everybody else around us is in darkness, just a whole bunch of weed smoking, shucking, and jiving, basically loving the so-called white man type guys. Hey, guess what? We're in the mode set or in the mindset of serving our power. Real quick, let's get something. This is the book of Matthew 4 and verse 16. It says, the people which sat in great darkness saw great light. Yes. In that great darkness was the part of these different philosophies and these different lies that the so-called white man gave our people, man. He told you if you work hard and you could be anything you want to be, you could be president of the United States. That was the top, man. I remember, niggas at the barber shop saying you can be the president, man. You could be an astronaut. That's the deepest that niggas want to go. But they ain't gonna tell you that you're a king and a priest and that you're the sons of the Most High. They're not going to teach you about Yasharallah and how those people in Israel are not the children of God. They want you to be in the same mindset. If you just work so hard, you could be just like the so-called white man. Why you don't want to be better than them? And clearly, spiritually and naturally, we are better than them, man. Just how Cain was lesser than Abel and how Jacob was better than Esau. Go ahead and read this again. And that's a part of that light being upon us too. How that Cain and Abel beef didn't just stop back then. That Cain and Abel beef is going on right now. That's why people say it ain't nothing but black and white. For lack of better words, that's the main characters upon the planet Earth. These Chinese people, they really don't matter. Let's get this again. The people which sat in darkness saw great light, and to them which sat in the region in shadow of death, which is Babylon the Great, light is sprung up. And that light being sprung up is these different type of camps, man. These different men telling you who you are and your heritage, man. Stop following that black culture bullshit. Shucking and jiving. It was a post I seen a young girl couldn't be no more than 6 years old. It's sick, man. Couldn't be no more than 6 years old, and she was dressed unlike her mother, man, provocative. And people under the comments, they was, bashing the mother, man, and rightfully so, man. But again, that's the lifestyle that Esau wants you to live. Hypersexualize the children, hypersexualize, just the black skin, and basically just be under that mindset of that go along, get along spirit. Read this again. It says, the people which sat in darkness saw great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. So in the midst of gross darkness, the Lord have brought us this truth, and this truth is the ultimate kryptonite into the things that Esau want us to follow. He wants you to continue to be a nigga, but once you start reading the Bible, now you the bad guy. Now we gotta calm this guy down, and we gotta convince him that the Lord loves everyone. Let's go ahead and get this real quick. This is the book of Psalms 119, and I'm gonna jump down to 104. It says, through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. And once you compare the ways of America into the ways of how the Lord really wants us to go, you can see why the Lord hates this place. It's totally contrary, But again, these people, niggas full of cereal, niggas full of McDonald's, very emotional, for the lack of better words. They're blinded of what Esau true plan is. And what Esau true plan is basically to cut you off from completely being a nation. This nigga just wants you to be a white man junior. And that's what a lot of niggas have turned to nowadays. Guys like Jay-Z, Diddy, you know what I'm saying? These guys have only turned it to the sons of Esau now, man. Why? Because they're participating and they cleave on to the customs of Esau. And not only is they doing that, they pushing forth the vibration throughout the whole world. You don't see these different celebrities. You might see what's that guy named, Kyrie Irving, even though we threw that out there, then they had to check him, he had to debase himself. Carmelo Anthony, he threw himself out there, then he had to debase himself and different things like that. But they're not going to truly push forth a celebrity who could truly believes he's an Israelite. No, man. They're not going to push forth the righteous ways of the East. And the reason why, because they want to keep you in that mindset of loving a white man, loving this society, and just basically loving being in the dark of what's truly going on. Let's go ahead and continue on though. It says, the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So through this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, now we can navigate through the valleys of the shadow of death, man. Now we can see if this statement false or true. Once again, they told us that we was Egyptians. Even though Moses was mistaken from an Egyptian, even Yahushua, Joseph, and Mary, they ran into Egypt for refuge, but that's not our true heritage, man. Just because we look like them or have the same skin tone as them, it tells us that in the book of Exodus that the Hebrew children are more lively. And the reason why, because we have a life. And that's what light represents. In the wintertime it's all dark and gloomy, but in the spring it's life. Sun shine down on us, And ultimately, with that light being shined, we can navigate through the ill dealings of this wicked world, in this wicked society, man. Now we're looking for the missiles to come. Because we know once the missiles come, peace and happiness, even the kingdom of heaven, man. In the sense of reincarnation, these things is a comfort unto our soul. But what Esau wants you to be, he really don't want you to have faith. He really don't want you to have the understanding, and what he wants you to do is just be a shucking and jiving nigga until you die, man. But that's not the will of the Lord. Let's go ahead and get another one. Isaiah 60 in verse 1. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. And what's a part of that glory of Yahweh Shai being risen upon us? Having this truth, man. That glory is not you having generational wealth. That glory is not you having a good record deal, man. That glory is not you having $1 million. No, that glory is having this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and knowing who you truly are. And once you have this wisdom, like the scripture say, with wisdom come all things, man. So then the wealth and those different things will come. Especially once you get into the kingdom of heaven. We're gonna be kings. You know, the deepest a nigga can get. Let me get a house on the hills, nigga. We want slaves, man. You know, land and resources. But again, this guy putting you in the dark, he want you to be in that dumbest state. There's a lot of guys, a lot of rappers, even a lot of talented Jake, man, who sold their life for a fucking $60,000 chain. And a couple of years later, now they bugged out and strung out on drugs. And the reason why, because they cleaved unto the ways of Esau instead of cleaving unto the glory of the Lord. It's the glory of a corruptible crown, but we're receiving the glory of this incorruptible crown, man, which will last forever, which will ultimately lead into rulership. Continuing on though, it says, "For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people." Yes, man. These niggas are lost, bro, and you can understand why Jeremiah said, "Don't pray for these niggas, man." Because they don't want nothing good concerning themselves. They don't want nothing good concerning Israel, because ultimately they don't want nothing good concerning themselves, man. They're comfortable in their state of being an American, and ultimately it's gonna cause their untimely death. Read this again. It says, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For gross darkness shall cover the earth." It's like, "For darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee." And how is this going to happen? That's going to be in the way of us having this truth, having this knowledge, and this understanding, man. You knowing about the mark of the beast being a tiny little device that will go under your skin. That's a part of the glory of the Lord. That's really true love. Because if you didn't have the knowledge and the understanding, you would basically be in what is called the void zone. You're going to be out there just drifting in dark space until a missile hit you. That's what a lot of SoundCloud rappers are. Content creators, man. It says what? It says, "But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, and the Gentiles." Yes, it's beautiful. That is beautiful, man. That word Gentile, man. It says, "And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising," man. Because ultimately, we was once in the Gentile state of mind, claimed to be African Americans, until what somebody told you was an Israelite, until you was enlightened, man. They passed that spiritual torch and enlighten your mindset. This is the book of Psalms 18 and verse 28. "For the Lord, it's like, for thou wilt light my candle, the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh will enlighten my darkness," man. So we was once in a Gentile state that was going around after that riotous way of living. But guess what? We came back and returned into our power. Like you go into the parable or the prodigal son. He was out in the city and he spent his life in riotous living. He was, living like a nigga, man. But at the same time, he was down in his worst estate. It was one point said, wait, he remembered himself. And a part of us remembering ourselves is remembering our heritage and who we truly are. Let's go ahead and come back right here to this word enlighten and learn to remove the dimness or blindness. And that's why even the parable say, bringing the death, make the deaf to hear and make the blind see. That's what we do by the way of having this understanding. Now we can see what's going on. It's impossible to see when you're in gross darkness. It's impossible to damn night like. But the Lord has the sun upon us. Now we can navigate through the valley of the shadow of death. We're going to continue on to supply with intellectual knowledge. Now you're not just a dumb nigga. You're not just a blunt smoking, drinking nigga just sitting on the block all day, slap boxing. You're not just that type of motherfucker. Now you're productive in the eyes of the Lord. And their point says what? To supply with intellectual knowledge, man. The knowledge that Esau gave you was there. You were learning about George Washington and learning about how the so-called white men whipped your ass for 12 years. But the knowledge that we're tapping into is our true history, man. How we was once kings and warriors, how we was once in a great estate and how we fell too. And ultimately, how we're going to rise back up again, and that rising is starting back right now. It says, put light in, shed light on. So the Lord is shedding light of what's really going on. It says to illuminate, this is the spiritual, the righteous Illuminati, man. Right? Esau is the Illuminati on the left hand side. The Lord make the Illuminati on the right hand side too. And what's the job for the Illuminati on the right side? To expose the nigga that's in the dark, man. Because their biggest weaponry is what? Lies and deceit, which they can be equated into darkness. But our biggest weaponry is what? This truth, which can be equated to what? Shining light upon something, man. So this is Esau's biggest enemy, us telling the truth. Us coming back into our power and ultimately us reverencing our Lord instead of reverencing ourselves or even reverencing the so-called white man. Let's go ahead and go back into that Psalms. Verse 3 again, it says, and the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. So we're being enlightened. We're being risen up once again. And it's going to be through the form of this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, man. Continuing on. Lift up thy eyes round about and see all they gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy son shall come from far, and thy daughter shall be nursed at thy side. Yes, and through the spirit, through the internet, the Lord is pushing out His word. But even we came from the west, and we came from the east all the way to the west again, just to get this understanding and to get this truth. But at the same time, what's going to be the whole banner of us coming together? It tells us that in Zephaniah, gather yourselves together, O people not desired. And the reason why we're not desired, because we're in the midst of gross darkness, and we're the only ones that have the light, man. We're shedding light upon the wickedness that you're doing. Let's get one more. And we're going to end off this the book of St. John 3, and we're going to start at verse 19. This is the book of St. John 3, and I'm going to jump down to verse 19. Matter of fact, let's start at verse 18. It says, he that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already. Yes, because it ain't like a part of you believing is really a action. You just say, I believe in the Lord, and you still in pork. You don't, man. I believe in the Lord. You eat kosher pork. We say, we the children of Yasharala. Well, we got kosher pork this time. They got a different diet, and ultimately we're going to feed them berries and then we can eat them. No, man. That's wicked, bro. Read this again. It says, he that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he believed. It's like because he have not believed in the name of the only begotten Son. And this is the condemnation, that the light is coming to the world. So when this light coming to the world, it's really meant to condemn your ass, man. To shine light of what needs to be changed, bro. It says, and this is the condemnation, that light is coming to the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. And the reason why niggas want to continue to be smoking, shucking, and jiving niggas for the so-called white man, because they love the evil deeds of the so-called white man. They love the flesh, the glory of the flesh, man, which the glory of the flesh is temple. You get a piece of box that only lasts that feeling only lasts but a moment. But after that, it's still gonna be sorrow. Continuing on though. For everyone that doeth evil, haileth the light. And that's why you see a lot of niggas on TikTok, Hebrew Israelites. That's one of the biggest trends, Hebrew Israelites. Nigga, they had a guy had a parody of Trump coming, Hebrew Israelites. And the reason why, because we condemning you. We telling you that America is going to be destroyed. We telling you that the mark of the beast is a tiny little device. And ultimately, we're telling you that we are Yasharala, and that the Lord is going to come back and deliver us, and ultimately repay you back for all the things that you've done unto us. We're shining light upon the problems upon the planet Earth. And that's the reason why Esau hate us. Read this again. And everyone that doeth evil hath the light, neither coming to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth coming to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are right in the Most High. Yes, because ultimately, even though you get cut with this word, you love being cut, because ultimately it improves you to being a better person, or basically filter vessel in the eyes of Yahweh by Hashem Shai. So yeah, I pray this video was edifying. I want to give our praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shai by Hashem Rakakwadash. I'm going to give that our honors to my apostle, the great millstone, and Shalom.